So we're on chapter 21 of your biology book, Variety in the World of Invertebrates. And we're going to be talking about 21, section 1, which is on mollusks. And mollusks are the phylum Mollusca, Molluska. So here we have one group here, which are bivalves of mollusca. Let's talk about, there's actually, what are mollusks? Well, have you ever heard of clams, oysters, slugs, snails, squids, and octopus? They're all mollusks. They have 3 different parts usually. They have a muscular foot for locomotion. They have a visceral hump where their organs, internal organs are. And they have a mantle, and we're going to be looking at these with the different mollusks. Mantle is a skin-like covering. It can be a shell covering made with calcium carbonate, and some of those beautiful shells are of mollusk shells, and they can squeeze in and out and of these shells. They also, some have a protective wrapper for those without shells. There are usually about 1,000 new mollusks they found every year, and up to 100,000 so far of mollusks. There's 7 classes of mollusks, and we're going to go over just 3 classes. And the classes that we're going to go over are going to be the gastropods. The gastropods, gastro means stomach foot, and they're like snail and slugs. And then we're going to go into the bivalves, and these are the bivalves here, so you can see what we're going to focus on, these bivalves, which are basically bivalves, clams and mussels, or oysters and scallops. And then the cephalopods, or like have big head areas, and these are like the octopus and the squid and the nautilus, those, and the cuttlefish. Those are those cephalopods. So let's begin here with the mollusks here, and here's some mollusks that are bivalves. So bivalve mollusks. Bivalves have, that you say bi, which means 2 shells. So you can see here we have 2 shells on the clam shell there, and the top and the bottom. Their hatchet-shaped foot comes out, and they call these pelasepodi. Pelasepodi is the name of these bivalves. Pelasepodi, and they have 3 layers. The 3 layers are, first of all, they have a horn-like outer layer, the outer layer, and then they have the crystalline middle layer and the pearly layer. Let's go down and look at a better picture of that. Maybe I'll go on to the next. Show you. There we go. Here's a good picture of a clamshell. So you'll see here their layers. They have the upper layer there, as you can see, and the outer in the middle, and then they have this pearly inner layer there, as you can see, the pearly inner layer, the crystalline middle layer, and the keratin outer layer. So here's your layers. So here we have the layers. This is a picture right here, taking this little square and putting it over here, and we have the layer, the outer layer, and then the crystalline middle layer. Here's the outer layer right here, this very edge, crystalline middle layer, and then we have the pearly inner layer, where you call it mother of pearl. The nacre, N-A-C-R-E, is what produces basically this pearl, and basically what happens is the 2 shells hinge together, and inside they have a foreign object. So if a foreign object gets inside here, it irritates, like an irritating particle here. Then the layers of pearl, this nacre layer, this nacre forms around it, and then a lot of times you can actually have a pearl. Usually it takes a long time for a pearl to develop, though, that's worth anything, like 7 years, pearls. But you can see that how a pearl would form in the midst of that when they have an irritating particle that's caught inside of the clam. So now the locomotion here, the 2 shells and the hinges have this abductor muscle in between them. Let's go on, let me see. maybe see better down here. Okay, here we go. Here's their locomotion that we're going to talk about. So the locomotion, basically, you know, of course, if here you have the muscle that holds it together, that's the abductor muscle that holds the clamshell together. And then now you have a foot for burrowing. See the foot? See how the foot comes out here from the clam in the bottom of it? And the blood goes to the end of this foot and it swells into this like hatchet-shaped little foot. And then then the foot shortens as it goes. And so as the clam pushes the muscular foot into the sand there, then it forces blood in, causing it to swell and form an anchor. And then using the foot as the anchor, the clam pulls itself into the sand. See how it does? So that's how the clam burrows into the sand. Okay, let's go on to the next. This is a picture of a clam, so we're going to go over that. Well, before we get into this clam here, there's other kinds of scallops. Scallops also swim with bivalves. Let's see the picture. Let's go back to the picture of the scallop. Let's see if we can see a scallop here. Okay. All right, see over here? Here's a picture of a scallop. See how the scallop? And the scallops swim by opening and closing. These scallops. Good eating sometimes, scallops. And then we have oyster. This is an oyster. And it's usually, oysters are usually immovable. They're sessile. Sessile means immovable. So, feeding and respiration. So let's go back to the respiration. And how does this clam live? Here we go. So there's a place, siphons here, as you can see. This is the X current siphon out, and this is the siphon that comes in. And there's the critical movement of water in and out the shell. It's very important this water comes in and out. And this is into the mantle cavity. So as you go inside here, you'll see the water coming in and out. This in-current siphon goes into the matter, into the gills. So you see it's going here, and then it goes across the gills here. And as it goes across the gills, this is where respiration happens. The oxygen comes in, and the carbon dioxide goes out, just like us. But here's the gills. It goes through gills here. And then as for the water traveling to the intestine, do you see where the intestine here is? Basically going, let's see, as it goes in through the mouth area, here's where the intestines goes, the stomach here. Then it goes down through these intestines, through here, the intestines. Then coming through the heart here, coming out here, the intestines basically goes out. Here's the anus right here, coming out the anus there. And so you can see, very unusual, isn't it? So it's an open circulatory system, which means basically it doesn't have lacks veins and capillaries and arteries, you know, basically it's open system. And it also lacks hemoglobin. So it's kind of a colorless bluish color blood because it doesn't have hemoglobin in its blood. So basically the circulatory system is an open system, although it gathers into the heart area here. You see it comes down to keep it pumping through. So the nervous system is pretty well developed. It has 3 pairs of ganglia, and it's very sensitive to touch and light and chemical changes in the water. So here we go. As we go here, we'll see here is the primary nerve ganglion, which is the brain. Looks pretty tiny to me, doesn't it? This area, where the brain is. Here's a digestive gland that goes with the digestive system. Here is the muscle, the adductor muscle that, you know, closes and opens, as I said. Here's the primary nerve, mouth here, comes in the mouth. We went through that already. This is the pulp right here. And here's the reproductive organs here. come in here, and this is where basically the gonads would be. If the, you know, the gonads maybe where actually where they produce the eggs and sperm area. So, and so going kidney, heart. This is the adductor muscle that cuts, and this is the adductor muscle on this side. Both of these two, see, this is the muscle scar. This actually comes down here and holds it in the hinge here. Okay, and the shell area is very, and here's the foot coming out. That's a clam. So scallops, back when I showed you that scallops, they have eyes. Clams don't have eyes, but scallops have eyes. Can you believe that? Reproduction is sexual external fertilization. Basically, the external. So basically, what they put as for the eggs coming out and the sperm coming out, it's going to be fertilized on the outside of the clam. Let's see. The sperm has the X current, comes out the X current siphon, and the females in the N current siphon. So you see there. Let's see if we can see here. Basically in this area here where the reproductive, like I said before, the reproductive organs are. Okay, another thing that's important to know is that, you know, clams are scavengers, so they can come and eat contaminated areas and beds. That's why it's very important for clams that you know where they come from, because basically they can carry disease when you eat them. So not just to go get any clams and eat the clams, they have to check the beds that they live in, where their food is coming in and what kind of food they're eating. So, because God warned against shellfish in Leviticus 11:10 back when. Nowadays, though, we see where people get clams, they have to be very careful. If they're not in a certain tide, they can cause red tide, I think it is. If they get them in red tide, they can cause diseases. So let's get on for the next, and we're going to talking about clams. We're going to talk about gastropods. Here's some gastropods. They're another mollusk. Gastropods are called stomach. Gastro meaning stomach. There's stomach-footed mollusks. And they can have shells or they cannot have shells. In this family, you'll see snails and slugs and whelks, abalone, conchs, what else they have? You see all these different here, as you see, but they're basically have a univalve, a single shell, not the two shells, they don't have bishells, one shell, and they can have very coiled and colorful shells. In fact, there's 65,000 different species. Some have the right-handed shell, which they call dextral, like ambidextrous. Dextral means clockwise shell. And then there's the counterclockwise, the left-handed shell, which is called sinus valve. So here we have the different kinds here. You can see here's the gills of a nudibranch. Looks like a snail in the water, huh? And down here you have a giant land snail. See how the snail's coming off with the eyes on the antenna eyes. Here's a garden slug. Over here you can see the shells. This is the right-handed is the dextral shell, goes clockwise, round clockwise. And then the left-handed is the sinistral shell, which goes counterclockwise in its spiral. Slugs have no shell. Marine slugs have partial shells, and nudibranches, as you can see, are brilliant colors here. See, here's a nudibranch there, and as you can see, those kind of cells, their gills are exposed on these branches, and they can be 2 feet to pinhead. And some of these here, these especially snails and stuff, can be pests, and they can destroy crops, and they also carry parasites. So never put a slug into your mouth, that's for sure. They carry all kinds of diseases. they have this foot on them, and their foot is called basically the foot, and then it goes on to the visceral hump and the mantle, or 3 different parts. The foot, the visceral hump, and the mantle. They also have a head that protrudes from the shell, and the belly rests on the foot. So you see, here's the head, here's the head there, here's the head of it, and the belly rests on the foot. The bottom is the foot area. And it moves in the ribbon of slime. It moves on slime. So it puts out the slime and it moves. The operculum is a lid at the back of the foot. So basically they can draw their head back into their shell. And when they draw their head back into their shell, the operculum will close, and so they're protective. So animals, all they'll see is the shell, and when the snail's head inside the shell, right? And on land dwelling one, they have simple lungs, and the ones that are like this one, the nudibranch, have gills. So some have gills and some have lungs, depending if they live on land or in water. Then they have those tentacles on their heads. See here, these two pairs of tentacles for feeling, and there's eyes at the end of these 2 little tentacles. Can you believe that? Their mouth is called radula, and this radula scrapes food like a conveyor belt to the digestive tract. The radula has thousands of small teeth. Most of these gastropods, snails, and such are herbivores, and there's very few carnivores. The carnivores, and those that do prey on in the water on mollusks and other mollusks, and they have larger teeth. But these mainly are herbivores. And like I said, a lot of times they are very helpful. In one area is they clean up debris and garbage. They're garbage cleaners, but you shouldn't eat them just because they are in the garbage and they have lots of bacteria and gross stuff on them. So let's look at a picture of one here. This is a great picture. Here we go, is anatomy of the snail here. You can see here, here's their tentacles here. You can see the eyes at the end, and this is their head area. It's tentacle that comes out this area. Radula is the mouth. The radula, how it scrapes, it has these little teeth-like things on the mouth. As it comes in, the crop, this is the crop, kind of a stomach area that has like sometimes the little rock particles or something, as kind of the crop area where things are stored. And this is the salivary gland. It goes in here, and you can see here's where the stomach is. The stomach is going up towards, where the intestines, right, winding around here, and you'll see where the intestines are. The digestive gland is right here to digest what these things, and the intestines. And then we see this is the outer shell. Oh, the lung, the heart. This is the lung. This is the lung of a land anatomy of a snail on the land. So they don't have gills, they have lungs here. Here's the mucus glands that produce their slime, and these are reproductive structures on here. More reproductive structures here. Let's see what else. Stomach, kidney right here. Heart, lung. This is the foot, how it moves here, the foot at the bottom. Remember, they have 3 parts. They have, as you go, the foot is the bottom part. So let's go. Remember the 3 parts? Okay, let's see here what we have. Oh, I was looking at the wrong one. We'll go on to the next one. The gastropods, Foot, I forgot. Foot, visceral hump, and onto the mantle, the outer layer in this one. So let's go on to the gastropods. This is the last one we're going to go. And these are these are gastropods. These are stomach-footed. These are the snails. Let's go to the cephalopods. cephalopods. So cephalopods are very unique. These are cephalopods. Cephalopods have a big head usually, and head foot kind of together, they call them, and they are in the category of mollusks too, of course. And cephalopods are octopus, squid, and cuttlefish, and chambered nautilus. And they too have that mantle and the hump and the foot, the same as mollusks, but their head area is very big. The mantle is their outer body, and their hump is elongated, and so this head foot is kind of indistinguished area that merges together into a bigger head. Octopuses have no shell, and nautilus have a beautiful shell, but they're both cephalopods. Squids. Let's talk about squids here. Here's a squid. Very unusual. See where the eye down here and with this head area. They're torpedo shaped, and they're like jet propelled. And when they force the water out in this siphon, and they undulate fins on their head. See these the fins area on their head. They have 10 tentacles, but now they call them more like 8 arms and 2 tentacles coming from the bottom of the squid. And they have suckers on these to hold and catch fish. They eat mackerel and herring, large amounts of mackerel and herring. The common squid is 1 foot long. Common squids come from Nova Scotia to Florida, but the giant squid is the largest invertebrate, and it's in Antarctica. So the largest invertebrate would be the giant squid, and it can be 43 feet, 660 pounds. Can you imagine that for a giant squid? The largest one that's ever found was actually 30 feet and 1,100 pounds, 1,100 pounds of squid. That's a big squid. They have eyes that are big. Some of these eyes are really big on these giant squids, like 10 inches round. And they have beak-like jaws that come there, like, and they tear apart. And their radula is basically what aids them in eating, this radula. Of course, the squid has gills, and in their gills, they have no cilia in their gills. They have these little booster hearts that help drive blood into the gills. And they don't have, like the other mollusks have an open circulatory system, they don't have an open circulatory. They have a regular closed circulatory system, so not an open one like the other mollusks have. So they have arteries and veins and capillaries just like we do. Now let's talk a little bit about the octopus. Look at this octopus. It's a crazy looking one, isn't it? So an octopus has 8 arms or tentacles with suction cups. 8. The Pacific giant octopus, kind of looking like this, I guess, these giant octopuses, they can be 20 feet long and weigh 150 pounds. And some of the octopuses are really tiny, less than 2 inches. The octopus is very timid. It crawls on the ocean floor and tries to hide. But it moves. It has this jet propulsion, kind of like this. As it jets out, it secretes this inky fluid that looks like black ink coming out of it. The brain is in the cranium area, the top area of the octopus, and it has a most complex brain of all the invertebrates. So you can think maybe these octopuses are pretty smart. It has a pretty complex brain. It has 2 very complex eyes and very excellent vision, because both the squid and the octopus have very good vision. Okay, let's talk about this. This nautilus is another type of cephalopod. You know, it doesn't look so much like an octopus or squid, but it is. But it lives in this beautiful nautilus shell. And its shell has these spiral chambers in it. So it lives in this little house. Some of the chambers are empty that it lives in. It's very mathematically precise. And some of the chambers are abandoned chambers that it lives in there. And it fills the chambers with water to either sink it to the bottom or to pump the water out so that it can raise. It's kind of like a buoyance, to keep the buoyancies like you would in a ship. So it pumps the water out so the water won't be so heavy, so it can float, and then it actually takes in more water if it wants to sink. It is about, let's see, it has 94 tentacles without suckers on the tentacles, and 2 eyes. 2 eyes in the sides. You can't really see right. I guess this would be eye right there. 2 eyes in the sides of the head. And it has very poor vision because the eyes don't have any lenses in them. Nautilus eat mainly shrimp. So I think that's it, and we'll start on the next section. But those were the mollusks. Yep, that's the end of the mollusk. And you can answer these questions. Some of the things we went over, you know, foot, the visceral hump, the mantle, those 3 parts, how a pearl is made, the siphon, the incurrent and excurrent siphons, the univalve slug, radula is like the mouth with the teeth in it, and cephalopod being, or cephalopod being the octopus, and squids and chambered nautilus. So, okay, all right, that's the end of this section.